Hey everybody, I'm gonna do something different for activity 5. I'm going to critique your work with a screen recording because I found that um, first of all, typing out my individual responses to each of you was a very lengthy process, and I wasn't sure I could say everything I needed to say, and also I found that. Um, Everything I was telling you guys kind of privately in your grade sheet is really stuff that the whole class would benefit from, and we do have these things posted on a blog for a reason. And so and it's much more natural for me to just critique work verbally. This is more what I'm accustomed to doing. So trying to do the critique in the online environment, this is a new thing for me as well, and we just have to kind of experiment until we figure out what happens. So um, and just before I start, I just wanted to remind you that I did ask but not require, if you don't mind, if you would copy and paste my comments to you back into the blog for activity number 4. Now you don't have to do that. That's your information. It's between you and me. It's confidential. I can't violate your confidentiality by sharing it with everyone. But if you decide to, I think that you will find that um, a lot of you are going to hear similar, solutions to similar excuse me, problems. And it would help me out a lot if you would do that, because I want you guys to get as much out of this as you can, and we don't just learn from our own work. That's the whole reason we're doing this as a group. We learn it from looking at each other's and talking about each other's work as well. So okay, so moving on to activity 5, I'm just going to kind of start at the top of the list and work my way down. I haven't even looked at these yet, so you're going to get kind of a fresh reaction from me, which is how I pretty much do a critique, in a face-to-face class anyway. So, okay, so the first one we've got I think it's Eli. It's Eli or Ellie. Probably need to let me know how to pronounce your name. Um, you put yours in there first, I believe. So we're gonna just kind of start at the top and work our way down. Um, the first one is symmetrical balance. And I want to make sure that you guys understand what symmetry means. I had a horizontal one here and a vertical one here. This one I consider to be almost perfectly horizontal. I mean, I'm sorry, almost perfectly symmetrical. It's a vertical configuration. You've got a clear axis line that cuts through the center of the vertical center of the frame. Here, you really kind of have, quote, violated, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean you've kind of, quote, violated the symmetry by introducing an angle here. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing, but because it basically, let's take it and break it down into shapes. Instead of having what probably should be two, rectangular forms stacked on top of one another. And I believe that if you would have rotated yourself or zoomed in or something so that the trees filled both sides of the frame, I would probably say actually come to the side of the lake over here, like where I'm pointing, and be facing those trees straight on, so that they're kind of making a row that goes right in front of you instead of a row that's descending into the depth with perspective. So what's happened then is we do have a nearly rectangular form down here at the bottom. I'd like you guys to start paying attention to lining up that horizon line. You probably have some little guidelines you can use in your viewer, and if you don't see them, look in your user guide. Maybe you can uh, figure out how to get them something. You can have a little rule of thirds thing in there, and you can line things up. Okay, so to have this be perfectly symmetrical, first of all, the horizon line um, would probably be here, or the top of the trees would be here. And then this would all, so that the bottom would either be all water or all water and trees, but it would only come to about right here. This is about your center point. And then the top would be all sky if you showed the top of the trees, or all trees if you chose to make the water line the center mark. So what happens here, let's break it down into geometric shapes, and let's learn to look for these things, rectangles, triangles, circles. I'm drawing a picture here around a triangle, and then another triangle right here. And so what's happened is you've got these two wedge-shaped forms that have kind of stacked themselves together nicely. And in a sense, if you look at just what's happening in this rectangular area, you've got a nice kind of a diagonal near symmetry here. But as far as like truly being symmetrical balance, taking a picture of something that it by nature is balanced symmetrically, but you're not facing it in a way that it appears perfectly symmetrical within your frame, then it's not really symmetrical balance. Okay. And another thing I just want to point out, I'm asking you guys to put your ISO and everything in here, and I don't know if there was enough light. It just seems to me like if you were on an ISO 800 and your f-stop was at 16, unless you were doing this specifically to get the complete depth of field, I would say, hey, why don't you take that ISO down a little bit? I'm looking at this now and thinking that's probably why you made that decision. So I'm gonna just kind of move on from there. But that was a question I had at first. But now I'm realizing, oh well, of course it's depth of field. But I just would like to remind you that always use the ISO you possibly can. Now if you're using a super small aperture specifically for depth of field, then of course you're going to have to compensate for that. And since it's not a very big opening, you had to let in some more sensitivity to the sensor. So, and let's see, 1/8 of a second is a little slow. And I can't really see this very clearly because it's just a little, JPEG. I'll have to be able to tell when I look at the finished file at some point to be determined. But I can tell. It looks like it's in focus. I'm assuming that if it is, you used a tripod. If not, you got lucky, because you should never shoot slower than a 60th of a second without a tripod. For some people, it can maybe go down to a 50th, with practice, but I know I can't. Okay, so this one, much better example, in my opinion, of perfect symmetry or near perfect symmetry. Okay, let's see, rule of thirds, horizontal, good. Okay, so we've got the, horizontal line right here. I would say one thing I'm noticing with a few of you is if you've got a line that's nearly horizontal, go ahead and make it completely horizontal. If it's not nearly horizontal, if it's in an angle, go ahead and make it an angle. But a line like this that's kind of hovering somewhere between almost perfectly horizontal and almost a little bit of an angle, it looks a little haphazard. And so I would say, take that into consideration. Since I think some of you are having a little trouble, recognizing the horizontality of that line to begin with, let's go ahead and make that one of our objectives, for the future. Okay, so when I'm giving you these criticisms here, it's not because I'm saying you did a bad job or anything. This is an exercise, and I need to have things like this that I can point out to you so that everybody can learn from it. Okay, so this is rule of thirds vertical. Good, I really like the composition on this one. It's, it's pretty much rule of thirds. I mean, it's a little bit wider in the middle, but the rule of thirds is not an absolute. And I think that this one works. Yeah, I like the way you're taking up the space in this one. And you also do have some interesting geometry happening in the background. This one we do have what appears to be an intentional angle. So if we think about it, this is a triangle with the tip cut off of it. If this line kept going forever, the tip would be right about here. Here's another triangle with the tip cut off of it. Your next assignment deals with vanishing points, and so I think it's always a good idea to see where that vanishing point would be, and all you have to do is follow these lines out. Okay, stop right here. And then a nice kind of pretty much a thirds breakup in the background as well. A little bit off the horizontal, but I'm not saying the horizontal it always has to be horizontal. I'm just saying if you're going to be horizontal, be horizontal. But of course, if yeah, okay. But anyhow, let's move on. And the rule of thirds using contrast. Okay, so yeah, you've got a band of dark here, a band of bright green here, and then a band of sky up here. So yeah, I think that pretty much works. The top third it might be just a little bit bigger than the bottom third. If probably what I would say is shoot that several times. Several slight variations. A little bit more sky, a little bit less ground, a little bit more ground, a little bit less sky, and have them to compare, because I'm kind of feeling like maybe I would like this dark area to take up just a little bit more space and give just a little bit less space to the sky. Now this is something that comes from years and years of design studies. So I'm asking you guys to learn a lot of visual principles at the same time that you're learning all this technical stuff about your camera. So I know it's a lot. And I applaud you for hanging in there. Okay, intentional imbalance. Yeah, this one I think really works for that. You've also got kind of what we would call a three-point perspective, because you're down looking up, and the sides of this thing kind of seem to tilt in a little bit. Okay, a diagonal horizontal. This is a nice picture. I don't think it's quite doing what I intended, which was, like what you did in some of these other ones where you had a diagonal slashing all the way or almost all the way across the frame. I think that for that to work a little bit more, all it means is repositioning yourself. And what that would have meant is that you took your focal point, placed it over on the left side instead of the right side. So let's say like where you're standing, you would move around, maybe over to here. You'd kind of step back from that line and get it at a slightly different angle to make that line, really slice across the half of the, the half of the page. Okay, so a lot of times, when we see something in the world, we think of it as as what we see, but it's something different when you're looking at it through the frame. Okay, and so you can take anything in the world and make it a different shape by how you position yourself. And you have all the control in the world over how you create geometric shapes in your frame. Okay. This one's nice. Yeah, this one's really nice. You've got the rule of thirds going this way, and then you've got, a much better example of a slicing, a horizontal, diagonal slicing. Okay. And so I was wondering how this one was going to turn out. I hope you guys had fun with it. This is actually something I just learned how to do this summer, and I couldn't wait to share it with some of my students. So I'm anxious to see the full-sized file. These are both gorgeous. Got a rainbow in there, didn't you? There, it's a little hard to tell from the thumbnail, and I really can't think of a better way to do this, online though. Not until we get a server for you guys to load these things up to, but I think we get the picture, and it looks to me like you had a great time doing that, and like I was suggesting, there's nothing like an RGV sky at sunset, or to catch a rainbow. So we've got the most beautiful skies I think I've ever seen here. So, and so I think what I decided to do is I'm going to break this up into smaller segments, and so I am going to end this one and start another one. So nice work all the way around. Thank you for doing such good work.